two. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That's hip hop. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Ralph McDaniels. I'm hip hop coordinator here for Queens Public Library. Welcome to Queens Public Library, everybody. This is part of our Women's History Month celebration, or Her Story, as I like to say, or I didn't make that up, but some women made that up and I followed her lead because that's a smart thing for men to do, follow the women's lead, because they know the best, all right? So y'all can have a seat, please sit down, find a spot, because we got a lot of information that we want to talk about today. We're going to do a little Q&A a little later on afterwards. Give it up for DJ Stokes, who's playing some tunes over there for you. I want to introduce our panel. We were trying to wait for our last panelist, but she's not here. Maybe she's stuck in the weather. It's a little bad. I just came from Flushing, so it's a little tough out there. So I'm going to start all the way to the left. Is that the left? Or my left? Latoya Foggy from Queens Public, Library. And Latoya will tell you a little bit about what she does. Kawana King, right here. She'll tell you a little bit about what she does. And Jelena Stewart, right here. She'll tell you a little bit about what she does in a minute. It's important that you see the folks that do this. You know, we can have, talk about, oh, we need more women in tech, or we need more women in engineering, but it's important that that young lady back there sees them and knows that she can do this, because that's how I got on. I saw somebody, an African-American man who was on TV, and I was like, I want to be on TV, and I want to do just what he does. So it's good that they're here. Thank you so much for being here today as we celebrate Women's History Month. So I'm going to start it off with the introductions and a little job description. Latoya, our own Latoya, is going to start off right now. I had to pull some teeth for this one right here, but she's the bomb. She takes care of us right here at Queens Library. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Okay. My job here at the Queens Library is a computer service tech, and what I do here is I maintain.
Turn on your microphone.
I maintain and troubleshoot and repair hardware and software related issues here at the organization. I also can do that remotely when I work with customers, troubleshoot issues that they may have in the organization, or go to their desk to work with them and give hands-on training. I also pre-provision laptops and desktops here at the organization, and I also provide training and assistance whenever required. And that's just a brief description of what I do here.
Yes. Can you guys hear me? Yes. Great, perfect. As Ralph mentioned, my name is Kawana T. King. I'm so happy to be here, particularly amongst these women, Latoya and Jelena. Latoya, it's fascinating to hear what you do. Yeah, you do what I call like hard tech work, or you're actually in there actually doing the coding and the fixing, so I appreciate you. Unlike Latoya, I'm just a lawyer. but no, I'm a lawyer at Google, and I support our tech and advertising team. I'm a senior technology advisor, and what that means is for the use of any sort of technological or digital advertising tools, I advise our product teams and also our business teams on several different types of matters involving the utilization of those tools, such as what are the privacy issues associated with any sort of data that we may be collecting in order to build the technology tools that we're using to provide to the world. Also, when it comes to promoting our services externally and selling our services, I work with our sales team to contract, close deals with those partners who want to utilize our services to support and monetize their business. So that's a very high-level description of the current role that I play within the tech industry.
Hi everybody, so glad to be here. Thank you, Ralph. My name is Jelena Stewart. I work with an art collective called The Fearless Artists. I recently joined them in the fall to do a New York pop-up, and then in Miami, and then in December we did one at Miami Art Basel. My role with them is to create experiences, but my background is in emerging technologies, where I've worked for the last 10 years. In an area called extended realities, which is an umbrella term for everything virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. Prior to working in tech, I was in entertainment, working in film and music, making music videos back when Ralph was with MTV, and that doesn't really exist anymore. I went into tech to stay ahead of the curve, and I'm really thrilled to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So one of the questions that I like to ask around this time of year, but we should ask it all the time, especially our management, is are there enough women in tech, and why, if they're not, why aren't there enough women in tech?
I would say the lack of mentorship, that women don't have the support that they need in the tech industry, so it can kind of like make them not want to go in the field because they don't feel that they're getting the support that they need.
Was this something when you were in college that you thought about doing?
Honestly, no, it wasn't. I wanted to be a teacher.
And how did you come where you got to where you are today?
Well, I started, I did find my mentor who's here. Shout out to my mentor, Joey.
All right.
He helped me along the way, and I've grown to love it, where it's like, I don't even think twice about being a teacher. He showed me so much within the field that it's made me want to grow and do more, you know?
And Kawana, we've talked not just in tech, but the Old Boys Club. This is something that we hear about all the time. But does this still exist? I mean, well, you won't say that because you were in Google. But we see it across the board. Why haven't we had progress a little bit faster?
Yeah, no, there's so many layers to this. We could spend all night talking about it, but we won't. I'll be brief. I think according to the latest search that I just ran on Google, no pun intended, the tech field is made up of only 3% of Black women. 3% of Black women, and that number is just it's still continuing to be flat, even with DEI programs. And I think that the issue is multifaceted. One, I still don't think there is enough investment in our communities in STEM programs, because a lot of this develops, or a lot of this sort of matriculates at a young age. And unfortunately, our community, remains behind the curve when it comes to other community and their access to technology. So it really starts a lot of times at the beginning stages, and then the lack of resources that we have from there. So I do think that we're doing a little bit better about focusing on STEM programs and infusing that into our community, but I do think that still tends to be a hurdle. And then of course, we still, not just within tech, but still across industries, there's still this layer sometimes of unconscious bias that, just real talk, I do think sometimes impacts our ability to get through the door. When you talk about sort of the old boy networks, a lot of times, particularly in an industry like tech, if you are of a certain race or if you are of a certain gender, there is automatically sort of like this presumption or assumption that, you're good. Whereas if you come from another background, you sort of have to prove yourself a little bit more. So I do think that the standards for even making it in tend to be a little bit higher for us. And then once you get there, there's this issue of retention, right? The fact that a lot of times we go in these spaces and we're one and only or one of few, and that really does impact the enjoyment for your work and your performance. So one thing that we are focusing on at Google, and I know that other companies are focusing on this too, is more retention and progression programs within. Not only focus on recruiting, but also keeping, retaining. How are we making sure that even once we are in the door, that we are being promoted and advanced and supported as much as well as our counterparts are. And again, to me, there's still a lag there, but I think that's where a lot of the focus needs to be on. And to your point, Ralph, this is incredibly important that you have created this space and this platform, because, as is well said sometimes within the DEI, DEIB communities, I can't be what I can't see. And so the fact that we're up here, myself, along with LaToya, Angelina, hopefully, this is spreading. I see people recording, and that more young Black women will see us and will feel like that they do have a path that they could take if they want to pursue this industry.
Awesome. Jelena, what have you seen across the board? Changes, have there been changes? We're in 2024 right now. Clearly, we've been a part of this entertainment thing for a long time. Have you seen any changes in reaching out to women in particular neighborhoods or particular communities to get them involved in tech and and just, you know, overall just bringing them into the system?
Well, I think New York is a really great place for that because the tech industry, how many of you have heard of Meetup?
Yes, meetup.
So meetups are really pervasive in the tech industry, and they make it really accessible to reach even the most uppermost Google execs. So I think that the community building and networking is something that shouldn't be ignored. To Kawana's point, girls get tracked at a really young age, and it starts so young that even if there are STEM or STEAM programs, a lot of times they're not encouraged or supported to do that. So by the time they get to high school or college, they're not even thinking about going into these fields. So it's, it can be a lost cause.
Do you think that, when you see that happening, you kind of like, well, first of all, if you're in this space, you're already a pioneer, you're groundbreaking. So you kind of like, well, I gotta take care of myself too. I can't bring everybody with me. But sometimes we have to stop and say, hey, can we set up a program that maybe is an internship or mentorship program for young women to come in and see the space? Like sometimes I used to take kids, when I worked at Hot 97, I used to take kids to Hot 97, and I was like, we're going to go to the radio station. I didn't hear this radio station on their speaker all the time. And when I took them there, they would be like, looking at me like something was wrong. And I was like, what happened? And they were like, you actually did what you was going to say you did. And we didn't know all of this was behind the scenes, that there was microphones and people and computers and all of this stuff. We just heard the music coming out of it. That's all we knew about it. Now they're seeing a whole nother world, which is the same experience that I had when I first started working at a TV station. Is there ways that we can start bringing people, how do we start bringing these young ladies into the space? How do we do that?
Well, go ahead. No, Ralph, you make a great point. One example that I was able to do and use Google Browse to do it. Sometimes, hey, use the assets and use the resources that you have access to. So I'm a proud Howard University alum, and so I'm also very passionate about HBCUs in general. So I decided to invite a group of high schoolers, inner city high schoolers, to Google, and I hosted a panel with other Googlers, all who had attended HBCUs, and that were working in different areas of the company, within the business side, within the eng side, within like the HR side, or really, obviously to promote HBCUs, but also again to give them more exposure to what we are doing within tech. The fact that even though we're low in number, we're not unicorns. So I do think investing those seeds is important. Also, this is not about Google, this is about the tech industry, and other tech industries are doing programs like this. We created a program called Tech Exchange. And before the pandemic, we actually piloted it it was called Howard West, where we actually invited students at Howard University to spend a semester on campus at Google to learn advanced computer science courses. The reason why we were doing that is because we were finding that there was, again, this presumption that if you were a computer science or computer engineering major coming from a historically Black college, that you were not as well trained or as well educated in the field of computer science as if you went to a predominantly white institution, a PWI. So we wanted to clear out that misnomer and also expose the college students to what it was like to be in Silicon Valley. Now that program has expanded beyond Howard to over 13 historically Black colleges and Hispanic serving institutions. It's now virtual because of where we are as a world, as a virtual world, but they're still now getting more of that exposure. And the individuals who teach the computer engineering courses are diverse. Many of them are of a minority background as well. So I think that those are ways that again, we all can use our resources wherever we are to really try to have more exposure and visibility, and to follow up on LaToya's point about the importance of mentorship. That's also something that we have to keep also in the back of our minds whenever we get the opportunity to do that.
So let's talk about some of the challenges that you might have faced, along the way. I mean, maybe you can give us some examples of like just poor management. I mean, you're not gonna talk about your job right now. Okay?
Yeah.
So,
I'm at work.
but just
I would have said when I did officially start the position I'm in, I work with a majority men, and in my division I am the only female, so I do feel like I had to prove myself a lot to make sure that I'm not looked at as if I can't do what they can do. So I did, try my best to make sure, like, all right, I know they have it in their head, like, oh, she's a girl, look at her, she's not gonna be able to do what we do, she's not gonna go and get dirty. I do it all. I get dirty when I need to, guys.
Right.
And I know, they had this, it took a while before they were able to be like,
get with the program.
yeah, like, all right,
Cut it out.
she can hang with us now,
Right.
but I will say, you just gotta kind of like prove, it's always a point where you have to prove yourself, and it's like, why should women have to prove themselves? They're capable just as much as the man,
That's
you know?
right.
And
Round of
we
applause
wouldn't
for
be in
that.
these,
Round of applause for that.
positions if we weren't, right?
Right.
But I must say, I'm happy where I'm at, and I do have a great boss, and I'm not just saying that because I'm here, but he is really great, and I get a lot of he treats me as if I am, he doesn't need to monitor and, micromanage, so
Yeah.
I'm my own boss in a way,
Yes, yes.
and I like that, I appreciate that.
And the thing that's different from you and some of the other folks that are here is that we deal with the public. So some of your job does take you into that space of interacting with the public in a free municipal type space,
Right,
which is challenging. You have to deal with all types of personalities. We don't know who's gonna walk through that door
right.
at any time.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a little different.
That's the good thing about doing things locally
Yes.
or early in the mornings where we're not open to the public, so we can do certain things and it's not, gonna cause too much headache and stress, but, it's part of the job, right?
Kawana, any challenges that you've come across? I'm sure you have.
A few from time to time. As Latoya said, we know what the deal is. Sometimes we have to work twice as hard just to get half the credit, But what I've learned, and I'm older than I may look, because black don't crack. So I graduated from law school in 2007. So I've been out here for quite some time. I have some tenure, and what I've learned, one, I'm completely over this thing called imposter syndrome, right? Where I'm questioning whether or not I deserve to be there. If there's anything that working in corporate America has taught me is that I definitely deserve to be there at the table. They need me at the table. And so when we are talking about, feeling like we have to prove ourselves, there was a time where I had an issue with the senior VP. I was working on a deal, a very high profile deal, and I had never worked with this VP before. And he actually wanted my manager to lead the call. And I didn't think it was like a gender thing or a race thing. I think that he was just more familiar with her and her work. And he was like, listen, I want them to know we're bringing our top talent to the table. And so we talked about it. And she was like, do you mind second chairing? I was like, it's okay, because I'm going to blow this deal out the water, right? I'm going to blow it out the water, and he's going to know that I'm going to be that go-to person. And now after that deal, now he's calling me like, can you handle this deal? I'm like, no, I got other deals I'm working on. So sometimes it's really, we don't, like I said, we get this feeling that we have to prove ourselves. Like, there's nothing necessarily that we have to prove, but we just have to make them recognize. Like, if you don't know, you're going to learn today, right? And so I just think that we just always have to retain that mentality, okay? Because confidence is a lot about, confidence really can impact, your work and how you show up in the world. So I do think that we as a people, in spite of all the nonsense going on, we really always have to maintain that frame of mind that, listen, I deserve to be here. I made my way here. I deserve to be here. You are fortunate that I am here. Okay? And so if you don't know, now you know. Shout out to Biggie.
I completely agree syndrome, especially women and people of color in the space. And I work in a field where I don't have a technical background. I studied political science, and I worked in entertainment, and I fell into the tech industry. I had an opportunity, and I think you have to be really just open to learning and be confident about learning. And I work in an area of tech, that emerging creative technologies. There are experts in it, but there are also, a lot of it's very new. And so, people can call themselves AI experts because they want to, and they watched a few videos or spent a little time with it.
Well, one of the things I definitely want to do is, for folks that are here, before they leave, I want them to know what AI is, artificial intelligence. Can you give us an example, just everyday example of what it is and what it means?
AI it's a technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human intelligence and capabilities like decision making, reasoning, problem solving, and those qualities were, previously thought to be uniquely human. But I think one of the more important questions is what's generative AI, where, that's the ability to create derivative content across very large data sets.
So what do you mean? Break it down.
So, it's like being an artist. So when I say creating derivative content, you're taking information, whether it's a text or an image or, a sound bite, and you're doing something new with it. But what AI has the ability to do is to take huge amounts of data that humans don't have the capability of doing, and then synthesizing it, being creative with it, and being inspired by it. So being creative and being inspired are things that were also thought to be uniquely human, and now we have machines and computers that are doing that.
Fast.
Yes.
Very fast.
Kawana, AI, from Google's perspective.
Yeah, okay. We're dibbling and dabbling. And Jelena, I'll probably say I made you too, girl. So just, I don't have a engineering experience like Latoya does. So just so you know, you can work in the tech industry even though you may not have formal technical engineering education. I just want to point that out too. But with regards to AI, exactly what Jelena said. AI is kind of like a umbrella term for a lot of various forms of AI, like Jelena mentioned, generative AI, machine learning. AI in and of itself is not very new, even though this whole generative AI is blowing up right now. But machine learning has been a thing for a very long time. Even when you go on google.com and you start to put in a search and it kind of completes the search for you, he's like, how it did that? The machine, the systems have already been collecting data, not necessarily personal data on you, but just across the board, just general anonymous aggregate user data, in order to kind of be able to predict sort of what you may be searching for. So that's kind of like machine learning. And as Jelena mentioned, where generative AI takes it a step further, it's not just about drawing predictions and analyses and things like that. It's now creating new content. So you could go on some of these new AI systems and say, give me a visual image of a dog playing in the park, near water, and it'll just bring up this piece that almost looks like a piece of art. That's kind of a very high level difference between sort of machine learning and this sort of next iteration, where essentially the output is different. With generative AI, they're actually the creation of content based on, as Jelena mentioned, this massive amount of data sets, and it's somewhat controversial, if you will, sort of how the data is being collected. And there are sort of pros and cons about how the data is being collected, how the models are being trained, and sort of what type of content is coming out of it. And, there are pros and cons to it for sure.
Are there biases in this information that's being collected?
Perhaps.
The output is only as good as the input, and
right.
Humans are doing the input. And
right.
If you look at first principles or the beginning of computer science and these technologies, we know who was creating them. So there are a lot of biases built into that.
So wait a minute. So if it's just one person, let's say it's me, And whatever I'm thinking is what I think should be in this system, that can't be correct, because I'm an idiot. And so it's got to be, how do you decide what's the fair way to do this, to put this information that kicks out this stuff? Like, how do we figure that part out?
Well, now you're asking technical questions about my pay grade. I might have to turn to Latoya, but I will say that what a lot of companies are doing in order to try to avoid the impact of the biases, like you said, that are going to be inherent, right? Because at the end of the day, the data that's being collected is being collected vis-a-vis humans, and we all have our biases, unconscious biases, implicit biases, explicit biases. So yeah, the data sets are tainted, and what companies are doing, they are applying these ethical principles. They are going in and literally trying to break the system, if you will, to try to figure out, okay, how do we do this so that way if someone does put in something and it does generate something that may be stereotypical or negative towards a particular community or gender or racial background or LGBTQ community, how can we make sure that that is excised from what is generated? And so there are technical things that are being done right now to try to minimize the impact of bias, but we're in the beginning stages. So there can be some, although I do think that there is going to be more good than bad that comes from it, there is going to be a fair amount of negative consequences that we're going to have to try to avoid and work our way around as this technology continues to evolve.
But this is the future, so it's like, when I hip hop everything out, right? So when Techniques back in the days made this turntable to play vinyl records, they clearly didn't make it for us to go scratching on it, right? So we take the technology and we hip hop it out. So we got to hip hop AI out, or whatever you want to call it out, and make it ourselves. Use it how we want it to be used, not let it use us. Remix it, there you go. So how do we get involved? Because this is something that is happening. Young people are doing final papers right now with ChatGPT, right? That's what it's called? ChatGPT. Yeah. They're doing it right now. And it's, and it's being accepted, I mean, it is. And, and some people may pick up on it, professors may pick up. We're a library. We have to be authentic. We have to be we have to put out real information. You can't come in here and it just be this panel's information on what. Wait a minute, I swear they said that on the panel. How can you can't use that now next week for something? So, from a legal perspective, I make a record, Kawana. I put it out. I have my voice on it. Somebody goes home, puts my voice into the system, changes the words a little bit, and changes the name of the song, and they put it out. And I'm like, that's me. They just changed the words. Mm-hmm. How do we protect ourselves from that?
Right. So you raised a couple of points. One, regarding whether it be ChatGPT or Gemini or OpenAI or all these tools. I do think that it's important that we understand how these things are used or intended to be used and use them responsibly. So I use Gemini, which is Google's product right now. And like, for instance, I was working on an interview that I was going to have internally for a position, and I was preparing, I was thinking about questions that they might ask, and so I put in a prompt like, what would be a good response to this question? And it gave me an answer. Now, did I go in and say word for word what that was when I did the interview? No, but it helped me to better prepare, helped to give me answers. So even my nephew, I said, listen, don't go in and just say, okay, tell me about Harriet Tubman, and then whatever it generates, you provide that to your teacher. It is intended to be supplemental. It is not intended to be a replacement, right? We don't want our youth thinking that they no longer have to think. So I do think that some of that comes from educating ourselves and also informing the youth about how these tools should be used. Because again, they're intended for more so enhancement. They're not intended to be like complete substitution. So I don't want us to go thinking that, okay, well now I don't have to do anything, I don't have to draft contracts, like everything is done. That's not the intended usage. But as far as the legal issues are concerned, the legal issues associated with generative AI are still relatively in flux. Obviously, copyright is an issue. So when it comes to copyright issue, and I'm going to keep this very high level, there's 3 layers to this. There's the training, then there's the prompt, and then there's the output. It's sort of like, okay, well, can you use copyrighted information, copyrighted material, such as like a song or anything like that, to actually train models? Right now, the jury is still out on that. Some people argue that it's fair use, right? So in your example, like clearly, if you're taking one song and you're just rearranging the words and now you're creating your own song, I think you have a pretty strong case for that being copyright infringement. But generative AI, because it relies on massive amounts of data from different sources, it's really hard to detect whether or not like you are actually violating one particular copyright or copyrighted material, depending on, again, how much of the material is actually being used to generate whatever the final content is. So again, there's actual litigation about this right now. There is no final word, but what comes out in these cases will probably set the stage and precedent for, again, what level of protection is going to be for the data that is used to train the models. And then there's the question of who has the copyright over what's generated, right? Jelena mentioned derivative works, and derivative works is a copyrighted term where a lot of times if it's a derivative work, you can claim ownership over it even if it derived from the works of others. But still there's a question about whether or not something generated by AI is a derivative work, because typically copyright only extends to something created by humans, right? So again, these are all questions, but in order to protect oneself, I think if you are a creative, if you are an artist, make sure that you have your stuff registered, make sure that if you do feel like something that you have created is being used in a way that you think exceeds sort of fair use, or in some way that you are being damaged or disadvantaged by it, then that's something that you should definitely document. Like I said, there are cases right now in litigation over this, so unfortunately we don't have like a definitive answer yet, but this is something that's definitely top of mind for the copyright and intellectual property industry.
So it's like to me, like sampling in hip hop. Like we used to just sample. And James Brown is not coming looking for me. Then James Brown went looking for you. But there was nothing in court that said there was no case to judge this on. So something's going to happen eventually. That's going to be how we decide how this is going to be dealt with. Okay. All right. So artists, Jelena, you work and advocate for artists, and how do we get past this? We just continue to be creative, I guess. Just do what, be an artist, a broke artist,
Well, I think I have to be a fearless artist.
Okay, fearless artist.
And I think to Kawana's point, AI is a tool, and it's really important for artists to think about it like that, a tool like a camera or a computer. And artists it's not going anywhere, so artists really need to empower themselves and learn how to use the tool. Otherwise, they'll get left behind. There's a funny quote: AI is not going to take your job. Somebody who knows how to use AI is going to take your job.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that the humans are more treacherous in terms of stealing and infringement than AI, really.
Right.
I think that we have to remind ourselves that this is a tool, and just get comfortable with it. Don't be scared of it. Start playing with it and experimenting. To Juana's point with the interview, that's a great example. I've used it to prepare for things like that, and because it has access to vast amounts of data, it thinks in a way that we are incapable of. There was a great example with the AI, an AI playing chess, and in the training, it did things that humans would never do, like sacrificing the queen, and then it came out with wins that humans would have never done. It changed the game and the way people play it, and we're seeing those types of results across medicine and different fields where humans just don't have the ability to process that kind of data. So use the tool and train it to work with you. A lot of artists that I work with, they work with their AI like an assistant. Like they work on training it so that they can hone it into getting the results that they want. You have to learn how to put in the prompts because it doesn't. Again, the input is only as good as the person inputting. So it takes practice, but you shouldn't be intimidated.
Latoya, how does the library, to your knowledge, how do they deal with new technology? How, like if it's AI or whatever it is, you know, how do you know, okay, this is old and it's time to go on to the next thing?
I would just say the way that we go about doing things is everyone's pretty much knowledgeable on what is moving in the tech industry. So at this point, you know, you either get on with the new or you get left behind. So there's a way where what's coming out new that's going to protect our organization from harmful things and, you know, people trying to attack certain or get, you know,
Cyber attacks?
yes,
Okay.
security and, you know, just stuff like that. So we try to stay on top of these things so that way we can avoid those situations.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Cyber attacks, you know, like, that's a pretty high-paying job right now, somebody who learns how to do that. What is that called again?
Cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity. Can you talk about that a little bit? Do you know anything about that? Like, just in general, like, it's a good job to learn, right?
Yeah.
Good money, right?
It's not really my background, but the cybersecurity is something that protects, you know, it has this security that protects your organization with, you know, different applications, right? And it protects, right, the breaches that can happen, right, in the system. So it protects it from security breaches and all types of things. And I say it's important to like make sure you have everything in check and like the latest and the greatest.
Right.
We have some stuff that we use, but I'm not sure.
Yo, let me tell you, if the computers go down in here,
Yeah.
we don't know what to do. We finished. Everybody stands in the hallway and looks at each other because everything is dependent on that, and so that's very important to making sure that it's secure and it's not getting hacked, and you know, there's a lot of people's information here. So this is, you know, a public place where thousands of people come in every day. We want to make sure that their stuff is secure, their information is secure, as well as, you know, the information that we have here, and the people that work here. I want to just, any questions about AI? Anybody have any questions? Yes.
Yeah. How you doing, Ralph?
Good, bro.
Ladies.
Yeah, so I think to your point, again, the law is really reviewing this. As always, technology moves much faster than the law, and we're always playing catch up. And I think some of the issues that you kind of reference or imply, again, apply to what we've mentioned about some of these biases that may be inherently ingrained in the system. I think that this is my personal opinion. Again, as I mentioned, I think that it's not going to be perfect. It is not going to be perfect. Nothing in technology is. But I do think that it's, again, incumbent upon us to learn the tools, learn the systems, learn what they're intended to do, and be involved. I know that at my job, we had a session with the team, the user experience team, that are involved in building the product, and they were going through sort of like how they are building the models in order to ensure that, or trying to eliminate some sort of unconscious biases there. And there was a young Black girl who was giving the presentation, and I was so hyped that she was giving the presentation. But it's important that we be involved and engaged in these discussions, because a lot of times when we're left out of these discussions, when we're left out of the table, there are certain things that are missed. Yeah. So I think that that as we continue to progress, I think one way to combat some of those issues that may arise with deep thinking and AI is to just make sure, to Jelena's point, that, you know, we're in it, right? We're involved, we're engaged, we're informed, and like Latoya said, also staying abreast of everything that's happening. So I encourage us as a community also to try to join forces, if you will. And so, for instance, one of my closest friends, she is the chief cybersecurity officer for Adobe. So if you want perhaps like maybe just a high level overview of like the dangers of cybersecurity, she's very also actively involved in the community. She could come in and talk to LaToya and her crew, and you know, we have to combine our resources. That's what folks in other communities do. So we have to really combine and conquer. But I hope I answered your question to an extent. Thank
The
you.
industry, you know, the film industry they're moving into that area faster than most of us think.
Yes.
Okay, just a couple of points, right? And I think this is for all of the panelists. Kawani, you made a really good point that you don't have to be an actual technologist to be successful in the industry. There's so many other opportunities. So I think it's really important to like expand that on the audience. And Juliana, you also made a really good point of technology is not a bad thing. It's actually a great thing. So keeping up with what's happening and like using this constant evolving technology to always like upskill yourself so that you can keep on going and staying abreast of what's happening in the industry is extremely important. I think of it as an opportunity. It's not a detriment to us. So I don't want people to think that technology is a bad thing. And then, sorry. LaToya, another thing, like, so there are all of these different like spaces that you can go into technology, but I think like for the audience, maybe what are some of the critical skills that you may need? What are some of the certifications that you may need to keep on like moving in the industry?
Maybe you can, you want to talk, Victoria, what kind of education do you need to do your job?
Well, for my position, they require a high school diploma and 1 year of technical support experience. But I know like a lot of other positions, you know, like the library tries to make it, you know, where you don't need like big, you know, diplomas and experience. They try to, you know, you have to have some level of experience, but it's not where it's like, you know, you need a lot of certificates and stuff like that for like a position.
Yeah, it's like you don't actually have to go to college anymore. There's certification programs. You're keeping up with those and you're keeping up with what's going on.
And this is across the board in business. You know, they're bringing down like, oh, you don't have to have that bachelor's degree anymore. You know, you don't have to have that degree, which is, you know, it's fine. I mean, I spent a lot of time in college, but that's all good as long as you in the business and you working and you understanding how this works. And I think that clearly, if you pay attention to the way the world is going, you know, like I was talking to some young brothers that just came home from jail, and I was like, you know, they don't have the toll booth no more when you go to the toll. There's nobody there. You just go through. And they didn't know that, this particular guy. Well, he heard that, he just never saw it before. So clearly technology is that's technology right now. There's just a easy pass and go on through. There's nobody there going, hey, how you doing? None of that no more. So it's happening, you know, and that's a while since that's happening. So there's other things that are happening now with NYPD and train stations and MTA and all of that kind of stuff. So it's happening on a regular basis. So, and it's not going to stop. And it's not like they don't want to have people working. It's just easier, more efficient for some of these things. I believe.
And I just want to add, in the creative world, in the creative tech world, a lot of the resources are open source, meaning they're on the internet and they're free. So there's something called Unreal Engine, which is a big gaming engine. Anybody hear of Fortnite? It's built in Unreal. And you can go on and learn at any point you want and just dive in and start learning Unreal. You don't have to pay for it. So those resources are out there for tech in a lot of ways if you want to learn. A lot of the artists, they're self-taught.
Hi. So I'm also a woman in technology that's not doing tech, right? So I'm in HR. But I have a question for LaToya, because you're in the opposite, right? So you are a woman that actually does STEM in a company that's not technology. So how do you think about bringing new technologies to a company that isn't traditionally based in technology?
That's a good question. Wow. I would say we can social media to bring more programs maybe to, like what we were talking about, the STEM programs, and maybe have like more programs. I believe Ashley does do some STEM programs here at the library for the teenagers, but using Instagram maybe to post things so that kids can come in and try to learn, and maybe do like a program where you sit with them for an hour just teaching them little trades like how to build a computer, you know, simple little tasks that they can do after school that would be interesting for them. Something like that.
Yeah.
Hope that answered it, right?
You know, I think the question, it just it follows up on Julia's question just about the broadness of technology, right? Technology is a trade, technology is an industry, technology is a practice. So, like I said, I don't have the technical skills that LaToya has, right? Like I said, I'm a lawyer that supports a technology company. But of course, I'm able to go in, I'm able to learn, I'm able to understand. So one, don't feel like, okay, again, because you don't have a tech background, that like all of this stuff is rocket science. It's not all rocket science. It can be very technical, but it's not all rocket science. But I just think that there is almost a place for anyone. Like you said, you're here doing tech work, it's not a tech company. Every place has a tech division. If they don't have a tech division, run. Every single place, all across different industries, banking, education, nonprofits, everyone needs a technical division, if you will. So even if you don't want to, work for a tech industry, but you want to be in education, like, at the library, but you still have that technical background, you can go ahead and involve yourself in that area. Like, some of these technical fields, again, don't require like a college education, because many of them are trades, just like going to be a like a contractor or electrician. Like, it's a trade. It's a very powerful and impactful trade. So even though I went to college, I still promote college. I know college is not for everyone or accessible to everyone. So I'm glad that these questions are being raised, so that way we don't feel like, I want to work in technology, so I got to go work at Microsoft. No, like it's so diverse, right? Just like Jelena, working on behalf of artists and creatives and supporting them. There is a lot of things that you can involve yourself in that still include technology, and it's not necessarily just about, I got to go and work in Silicon Valley. So again, think expansive. Think very, very expansive. And even go on LinkedIn. Like, if you're interested in like cybersecurity, IT, AI, just do a search. Just figure out what are people doing in these fields. And you'll be surprised, like, not everyone's a software engineer. There's this new thing. Like, that sounds interesting. So again, just invest in some time and just kind of exploring what different things are out there, and share that with the youth as well. Because some of them, I don't know if they're hearing this enough within their school. So.
I mean, and that was the key to having y'all here today, so that they see y'all. Mm-hmm. Somebody takes it, post this, so they see y'all. So you're like, these are those girls.
Yeah, first I think it's so great to have the diversity on the panel, so thank you, Ralph, for putting that together. And it was interesting hearing someone from HR, because I think one of the questions I have, which is really concerning me today, is, about AI being used in terms of HR and, selective words, and like, how do you get that information out to people? We have Job and Business Academy, as you know, where we're trying to work with people to get their resumes together, but your resume could be tossed out just by the fact that you're not putting in specific words to allow you to get to the next stage. So, I hear you in terms of how it can be positive, but there's also some challenges and things that I think we just need to be aware of, and how it impacts us just in terms of even getting a job, no matter what industry you're pursuing.
How do we fight that? Like, I know it's a lot.
Yeah, no, those are some of the negative consequences that I mentioned. Again, as Jelena mentioned, a lot of this is based on human thought, human inputs, and again, humans are not perfect. We all come with our own individual biases. But if it's any silver lining, again, I wouldn't go all in on this just yet, but I am hoping that with the work that's being done with these tools, it will actually help to eliminate on an automated basis some of those biases that, again, we still carry as individuals. So even if you get those resumes in, whoever's looking at them, they're still human. That doesn't mean that they're not tossing them out, just because they don't, just because they didn't go into a computer doesn't mean that all of a sudden, just because humans are in charge of it, that those biases and those issues that we still face are not there. But I'm hoping that the computers will honestly be a bit more discerning, objectively speaking, so that way, actually, from a digitized perspective, we can try to eliminate some of those things that we can't seem to be able to eliminate from ourselves as human. Again, it's still very early in this. That's why I wouldn't go all in on it now. But that's where I'm hoping that the difference will be made. That even if we're relying on human information, that we are going to train these systems and these computers to be better than humans and be able to actually eliminate the biases as they start to be used more so for HR purposes or for these other purposes.
Well, I know that, like when I do a Google search or any type of search, back, 20 years ago, there were certain things that would come up. Now, there's a lot more. There's a lot more things that are there. So we have to, and this is from a cultural standpoint, we have to bombard it with culture, talk about things that you grew up when you were a child, that your grandmother did for you. Bring that history of rich, history, and I don't care where you're from, what community you're from. Bring all of that. If you're Italian, bring all of that how you make the sauce. If you Puerto Rican, how you make the pastele. Put all of that in the mix, so that's all part of this thing that is, giving you this technology. And we don't lose, because what happens is, to me, is sometimes I feel like we lose the soul sometimes. It's cold. This is not like your friend sometimes. It could be cold. It don't give you all the information. It just gives you what's the hard edges of it. And I think that we lose part of our culture. It's like when a neighborhood becomes gentrified, the buildings look amazing, but you just lost one of the best soul food spots in the planet when that building was built. We don't want to lose the soul food spot. We want the soul food spot to somehow be delivered by Uber, and we still got it. We still got it. Yes.
I guess one of the things that I wanted to touch on, it's kind of like something what Toya said, and I believe, I'm sorry, Kawana, what she said as well, is that I'm a little old school. I've watched a lot of things change over the last 40 years, and I mean literally when I say, hey, you got home from school, open up the encyclopedia, figure out what you had to do with your homework. And there is no encyclopedia that anyone I know under the age of 30 really goes to anymore. They go to the Googles, they go to the internet or whatever. And what I'm noticing now more so is that we're not gonna improve on technology unless we're using technology. And I hate to say it, social media was a construct that didn't exist 25, 30 years ago. It was you picked up the phone and you called somebody else. But as LaToya stated, Instagram, Facebooks, and all those, this is information sharing on a global scale. Something that somebody in Europe is dealing with, about here in America. That 40 years, it would take a boat to get that information over here before it happened. And utilizing that today, our youth utilize it way more than our elderly people. We're that old dog who doesn't want to learn a new trick. I have a 19-year-old. I learn a lot from my 19-year-old. And when I start getting those questions and they're teaching me something, usually it's coming from technology that they got, that it wasn't something that I introduced, but it's been something I'm a part of. I'm in technology right now for 27 years. But the things they're learning is not how I started. So they're using the technology today, as LaToya said, the Instagrams. You go on Instagram and you'll learn something, whether it's this cooking recipe or about this book or special courses you can use. Technology is what's basically going to help us continue with technology. And like everyone on the panel said, it's I hate to use the analogy where I grew up in the age where they said guns don't kill people, people kill people. You use the technology the right way, it can be very helpful. Use the technology in the wrong way, like you said, we're going to be defending it, and we're going to have to come to that happy medium in between. But you guys are awesome. You're nailing it on the head on where we need to go. So, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just piggybacking on this, and I think, Jelena, this is really for you, maybe like Kawana too. So everything that's going on
curious about how I feel about TikTok maybe disappearing.
Yeah, but more so from like the artist background and people who are actually using it to actually make a living at the end of the day.
I mean, I think it's a great outlet for artists and people who are using it that way. So, you know, I understand the concerns, but I think it would be a great loss, quite frankly. Because TikTok's not going anywhere, so America will be the U.S. will just be shut out, which is, you know, it's like not using AI. I don't think it's the right move.
So the government is saying that they want to get rid of TikTok because they're concerned that the Chinese government may be trying to infiltrate, you know, the U.S. through these apps. But that's not the user's fault. That's just we got to fix that. You know, we got to have the security. It has to be tighter. Or are we saying that we don't have the security tighter?
I mean, there's espionage on so many levels, so I don't, you know, I think that, you know, targeting that specific platform
Right.
is not the right move.
I'm pretty sure the United States is doing something over there. So, you know, like,
Well, I'm sorry, I'm gonna throw out a plug a little bit as because privacy is part of my background. So to be honest, like I'm not following that extremely closely, but I do like have a high level understanding. So yes, there are some serious concerns, not just with China, but with Russia and a lot of our agitators on the cybersecurity front. And it's just a question of whether or not you know, the cybersecurity risk or the privacy risk that we could be exposed to as a nation sort of outweigh the benefit to individual creators. Again, and that's a balance. I will say that, you know, I do think that there are other resources that creators can use, like YouTube, to also monetize. So I do think that we do have to be considerate of sort of maybe the broader implications, to the extent that if China is doing certain things that there are concerns about, that we do want to bear that in mind. Again, I think that we have to be careful to what detriment we are doing that for those who are utilizing the platform, but we also have to be considerate of, you know, again, what may be the broader indications to our nation from a cybersecurity perspective as well, and whether these artists also have other outlets to monetize. So just something to also consider there.
yeah. Question, I saw somebody with their hand up.
I was gonna say essentially the
Oh.
same thing. I think there are a couple of things we have to keep in mind. One, there are a lot of these platforms. There's Daily Motion before YouTube and all of these things. But we don't actually know how pervasive the data that people are collecting on us is. The government, we know the US government is doing stuff to the point where they own specific companies so that you cannot build hardware that doesn't have their software in. The US government is nefarious. Like, their strategy is let's just stop everyone from doing the easier thing, which is software. Like, the loss of one platform that got big in the last 5 years is not like, you can move. TikTok is not so sticky that you cannot just migrate to another platform. It'll take a month. No one's going to lose sleep. I'm actually unclear. I actually think it's interesting that you see such an opposition to it, only because it doesn't make sense, right? Like, the opposition to it almost suggests that there is a strategic play to keep it around for no other reason but to make the US government look bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got you. And I mean, you know, to you know, Jelina's point is that we can't just get rid of it. We have to figure out how to work with it, you know, and don't be afraid of the technology. Now, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of things that are negative out here. This stuff there's probably something bad in this water. You know, if you really look at it, you know, so we have to work through it. You have to work through it and do the vetting just like anything else that we do. Yes.
We got Microsoft, new computers coming out now. Microsoft, we got, what they call it? Windows.
Yeah, well, look, everybody is, you know, is trying to keep up, which goes back to the point there are probably more jobs out there than ever for this tech side. So if there's some women here that are interested in finding out more about that, hopefully we can help you. We have job business classes here that can help you place you in those places, help you with resumes to say the right words and use the right, technology to go and train. Maybe you can take some courses ahead of time. We used to do training like that. You go and take a couple of classes at York College or Queens College, and that helps you out when you walk into the room, because now you're talking the language. Because when I walk over to LaToya's side, they talk in another language. I don't understand what they talking about. I'm like, yo, come on, cut it out. But that's what they do over there. So, but I want to thank everybody who came out today. Give it up for our guests. I guess we can take some more. You have any closing remarks? Anybody? Or you can just, you want to talk to the people that can just come up and ask you some questions if they want. Yeah? All right, so.
Well, I'll just say one thing. Again, I just want to, again, thank you so much, Ralph, for providing this opportunity, providing this platform. And again, I would just say, hopefully, I'm so excited to have been able to be on this panel with Joanna and LaToya. I'm going to be getting that information too. But again, just please, just if anything from this night, just kind of be inspired and be motivated within our community. Like I said, I really feel like as a community, we sell ourselves short because the world sells us short, and it's time for us to start empowering ourselves and doing for ourselves, especially with all these attacks coming on DEI. We really have to, go hard and really start investing in ourselves. So again, if this is something that if technology was something that you were apprehensive about, please go ahead and dig in and be patient with AI. It's fascinating. Just another quick plug about that young Black girl who was showing me the user experience. I think one of the prompts that she put in was like, show me someone with an athletic body. And one of the images that came up was an image that looked like a Black woman, right? Or someone presenting as Black, as they say. And also she had on some green and black like leggings, like green, black, and yellow. Wow. Green, black, and yellow. So what you think of when you hear that? Green, black, and yellow? Jamaica, right? Jamaica, because again, we know Jamaicans be holding it down when it comes to running, right? So it generated this based upon what is known as a stereotype, but it's kind of one of those things like, well, is that a bad stereotype, right? Jamaicans probably still like, hell yeah, we should be representing it. But again, these are the things that, we're trying to identify, because again, we're trying to eliminate those stereotypes, even if there's something that may not be negative per se, but you just don't know. So again, some of this stuff is really fascinating. So I really encourage you guys to dig in and learn more about it. And again, thank you so much for having us here with you this evening. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you. So this is the last program for our Women's History Month. Next month we have some programs. If you look over on the panel, you'll see some of the flyers, and you can pick that up. Make sure you log on to queenslibrary.org. We have some giveaways over here if you guys want to grab a couple of things before you leave as part of our hip hop programs. And yeah, Queens Public Library. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.